and welcome to Fit With Us episode 63. We have myself, Kyle, and Gary as always, but we have a very special guest, Ciara McCullough, who is kind of the head of Holistic High Performance. I'm going to let Ciara talk about who she deals with and who she works with, but to put it in short, Ciara helped save my life last year. So we'll get into that as we go. But guys, how are we today?
What a
Good.
fucking introduction. I
I
feel like,
know, by the way, holy shit.
all right,
Straight in with the heavy hitters there, Kay. Oh my God.
in the fields there before we ever begin.
I'll tell you what, Ciara said before, we were talking about what episodes we were going to be doing, and Ciara's like, it's going to be the best one ever. So I'm like, well, I have to start with the strong intro. I have 3 different intros lined up, and we're going to start with the strong one.
Aye. Oh, that's good. How are you, Kira? How's things? I know we
I am,
spoke just before we hit record, but let everybody else know how you are.
I'm good. I have a house full of 3 women inside there, and I'm in my little, I was going to say man cave, my lady cave. That sounds weird though. It's like lady cave sounds weird. Trying to like keep them away. So I'm just about like getting out of sickness and escaping it. So I'm great. The rest of the household is
Good, good.
bad.
Your little lady cave looks amazing, by the way. I've seen it on. Is that where you have your bike and stuff like that, and you do a wee bit of spinning in the morning and stuff?
Yeah, so I thankfully have like the half of the shed taken over here just beside me, and in here it's if I really wanted to, I could actually spend the night here by myself because this pulls down to like a double bed.
Come
Um,
on.
yeah, like a little outhouse. It's lovely.
Ciara, I'm going to just get straight into it. In terms of like holistic high performance, can you tell us a little bit about who it is that you work with and what you do?
Part of me is just like, you just tell your story there, and I can sit down and drink my tea. Holistic High Performance, who it is, and what we do, and who we work for. This is a hard one to answer because this is the question that I always have every day at the back of my mind. Who do we work with? It's not defined in a like we work with business owners or we work with like athletes or we work with like I work with human beings. And the reason I say that is not to work with everybody, it's to work with people who and humans who know that they like want more from their life, either personally or professionally, if not both. Majority of people will come to me in a sticking point of knowing that they're not where they want to be in life, personally or professionally, and sometimes both. And I absolutely love working with people to help them find that alignment. But really, when I look at that, it's helping them find success on all levels. Because usually what happens is when people come to me, they have success on one, and there's been things that have fallen by the wayside, and I help them bring all of those levels back up. Is probably the easiest way of describing it. That looks different for absolutely everybody. So it's really hard to put it into like I help this specific person with this specific thing because every single day it's wildly different. You could probably call me a business mentor. You could probably call me a relationship coach. You could probably call me a mental performance coach. You could probably call me like all of the different things because no one person comes to me with it's always different. So for me, it's like alignment, clarity, and helping them get out of their own way so they can get more into their life. It's probably the easiest way of describing it.
Absolutely love that, and I work I work with Ciara because she has very much helped me get my life back on track. And just as a very quick sub note to that, like I got, as Gary knows and we spoke about in the podcast back in August last year, I was out of kind of, I don't want to say nowhere, I thought it was out of nowhere, in a very bad position where I kind of didn't feel like I wanted to be on the planet or didn't know how to cope with things anymore. Ciara, I didn't actually know, to be fair, who could help me. I got stuck in the position of I don't know if anybody can help me, and stuck in my rigid ways of trying to fix things myself until I realised I couldn't. I reached out to Ciara. Still, like, I thought if there's anybody who could have helped me, it was Ciara. And to be fair, not only has she made me not want to end my own life, very much got me to a position where I enjoy absolutely everything to a large extent. Not like I wake up every day and buzzing for life, but there's definitely a lot more excitement, and we did go into a lot of not just the business side of things, but personal side of things alongside that as well. And I'm sure we probably could have done an entire podcast just on that alone, but that's not what we are doing. So
Part two. The second best podcast you'll ever record.
What led you to getting into what about your journey led you to get into kind of holistic high performance in the first place? What led you to that point?
Um, sure, you know the answer to this. What a great question. For me, and I actually love the questions that you've asked so far because usually like, who are you and what do you do? Because usually like, who are you and what do you do? Who are you and what do you do? What led me to holistic eye performance has been a personal journey, which became a business journey. Um, I was in a position multiple times where I didn't want to be on this planet either. And between the ages of 19 and 22, just to dive straight into it, I had 3 attempts to end my life. So I think for me, what holistic eye performance began as, it began like, what, 20 odd years ago now at this stage, when I think of my personal journey. So for me, I had a lot of self-doubt. I had a lot of like these internal beliefs that I like just wasn't good enough and this is how I was always going to be. So very, what I know now is a fixed mindset of like things are never going to change. And I genuinely believe that like I was broken. And I remember getting to a point in my journey where I was literally lying on a hospital bed. And I talk about this all the time because it's one of those eureka moments. I have no idea where it came from. But I remember lying on a hospital bed after the third attempt to end my life. And I remember waking up and was like, fuck my life. Like, how am I still here? And that immediately rolled into, you're worthless, you're useless. You try this again, you still couldn't even do that. Like, what kind of worthless human being are you? Like this, like horrific self-talk. Like, I can't imagine ever talking to myself like that now. But it was a very much a constant part of my life back then, and for a while afterwards. Um, so for me at that moment, I kind of just had this like, why am I here? And it was that, why am I here kind of type thing. And then for whatever reason, like a slap in the face, it was just like I looked and I saw my mother and saw that she was visibly devastated, but also like visibly relieved. I was like, fuck, okay, why am I here? Like, why did I survive this? And it was like that tone, the different tone, same question. I'm like, okay. In that moment, I just like, you've got two choices. You can keep going the way that you're going, not talking, not opening up, not asking for help, just believing that things are the way that they are. And like essentially you're not a cat with 9 lives. Like you're eventually going to succeed in this. Or you could do the complete opposite of that. And I think the pivotal point in my journey at that point was, for the very first time in my entire life, I realized I had a choice. I think about that time like every day or every week, because I was like, I actually have a choice here. And it was the first time I thought I had that. I think it was like a light bulb moment after that. I was like, okay, fuck. Okay, I have a choice and now I can make a choice. And this choice next is mine. And I think up until that point, for me, it was any time that I went to seek help, I was doing it for other people. But this time seemed different, that I started to want to do it for myself, to explore actually, okay, if I actually did the opposite, what would that look like? So that journey was what? I was 22 at the time. I'm 34 now, 12 years in the making. Holistic Eye Performance started off the back of COVID came. So I was a wedding photographer by trade. Absolutely loved what I did. But I was starting to feel, pre-COVID, I was starting to feel a bit, I'm going to say, trapped by it. Very nature of weddings, you have to be on all the time and you have to be present all the time. And like, that's absolutely amazing. But there was a kind of, and I talk about this journey in my life of like, there was a point where I was like 3 days after like major surgery, standing in like the kitchen of a bride's house and like barely holding myself together, being like, this is not the life that I want. Like, I can't actually prioritize my health. So there was a slowly on like learning of all of that. And then COVID came and heard the ass out of my fucking business. But just as COVID came in January and February, this is a very long answer to your question. But January and February of 2020, I actually decided that I was going to run. Well, I decided 6 months prior to that, but I was running from Derry to Kinsale, all across the Wild Atlantic Way. So I ran 1,000 kilometers in January and February, and got back, and then COVID hit. So I had this like huge sense of freedom, and then went and smack bang, and then all of a sudden your business is gone too. Sweet. And most people that I knew were like, "Oh my fucking God, this is the worst thing ever." I was like, "This is nice." Like, I was genuinely like, yeah, I was nervous because like I think I had a fucking VAT bill or a tax bill at the time and it was ginormous and I was stressed to my eyeballs. But for me, I was like, this space is lovely and this time is lovely. And for the first time in my life, again, I felt like I had a choice of what to do with my time and where to go. So I had been looking up mindset coaching and kind of delving into that, like I'd say about a year prior to that, but could never really do it because I could never commit to like weekends for the part-time courses, and I couldn't do it full-time either. So it was just off the cards at that point. And then COVID came and they were like, we're offering online courses. I'm like, fuck yeah. So literally spent like 2 years of COVID doing my qualification and getting all trained up. And then I think by the, trying to think fucking dates wise, I think November 2022 maybe, to start working with my first clients, and it's kind of snowballed from there. I started as the mindset coach, and it was helping people with doubt, confidence, belief. The more I evolved in my own business, the more I was around business owners, the more I saw the same type of challenges that they were facing. And then because I was in the business world and because I was like running my own business, I was like, I felt more aligned. So I wanted to evolve. And then from there, holistic high performance came because I wanted to help people in business find more freedom for their own life as well. So that's a very long-winded answer to say, yeah, very personal journey turned into a business journey, but happy to be picked and prodded from there.
Amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that as well. Very, very personal answer. So I appreciate you kind of diving deep into kind of where it all started. Can I just go back to like kind of 19 to 22, just quickly, just very briefly? Um, would you would you say at that point in time you were struggling to ask for help? And if so, what was it that was kind of stopping you asking for help? Was it like a fear of showing weakness, or if you don't mind talking about it?
At the time, I think so. I can give you two answers to that. I can give you the
Mhm.
answer now, and I'll give you the answer of what it was like back then.
Okay.
I'll give you the answer of what it was like back then. At the time, I didn't notice at the time, but I genuinely didn't believe that I was like, I'm going to say worthy of help. I didn't think that anybody could help me, and I didn't think
Mhm.
that talking would help. Um, was probably where I sat prior to that. And any like counselors and therapists that I had gone to in those years prior to the last one, I I was just asked these surface level questions, and instantaneously I was like, this person isn't going
Okay.
to help me. So like any of the times where I ended my life, there was a relationship breakdown that kind of was the activating event for it. And for me, like went in speaking to someone, it was like, oh, it was a relationship breakdown. It was like they went, ah, okay, tick.
Mhm.
I don't really need to ask any more questions. I was very lucky in the sense that on the last therapist that I saw, she knew a lot of my background story because she actually knew my mother. That's like, I remember going in first, I was like, well, damn. Just said I was going to say yes to getting help, but then all of a sudden, this therapist knows my mother. This is fucking brilliant. But she asked the deeper questions.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of initial, I didn't think it was going to help me, and I thought that I was beyond help. So kind of sat in that. Now I know that looking back at it now, it was because yes, I believed I wasn't worthy of it. But it was because I was probably petrified to open up because as a kid I was a big feeler,
Mhm.
like genuinely like very emotional, and I felt that all of that was wrong. So I was very afraid to actually open up and actually ask for help. Um,
Mhm.
it meant talking about things that I was afraid to talk about, and that was the biggest scary point for me. Whereas now I'm like, fuck it, like bring it at me. Yeah, I'm not
Open
afraid.
book now. Fuck it.
Oh,
Let's go.
like 100%, like ask me anything you want. I don't care.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Sorry, Kyle.
No, I was just going to say, see, when you made the transition to doing coaching yourself, I'd imagine, like, for me, certainly when I was looking at reaching out for help, I was probably looking at it from other people's perspectives and looking at it from the fact of, I know such and such who went to therapy and it didn't work for them, or I've heard such and such, you just talk and nobody actually does anything for you. And I think from that, there probably was an element of my side of things. I'm sure you can look at that in the fitness industry, and a lot of people talking about their experience with PTs being exactly the same. So probably the question I would have is, for you to run a successful business, which you do, I'd imagine that people need to know, like, and trust you to a higher degree. What was it like when you first made the transition to like mindset coaching? Did you find it was easy enough to get clients? Were you struggling with that, or how did you actually find that transition after you made
And I still fucking struggle
it?
to get clients, but I think the work that I do, there needs to be a greater element of trust. So like what would be different for maybe your business versus mine is the barrier of trust is lower, because it's easier to speak about health and fitness than it is to speak about like your mental fitness or your mental health. So a lot of my work at the moment, thankfully and like rightly so, is based on like referrals. But still to this day, it takes someone like six months to a year to kind of on social media buy up trust with me, through reading my posts and stuff like that as well. So it still is a difficulty to bring clients in, but I think that's the nature of the game of the more I can be me and the more I share of my story, the more I can build that trust. So I think to answer your question, it's still tricky, but it's based on when I can really look after people that are in my container. I think that sells itself. And that's kind of how I've always done business and kind of how I want to do business going forward.
Just because you've got high performance in your business name, and obviously I know a bit about it, but I'd be keen to know what does high performance mean to you outside of just like business and training? What is high performance?
I'll give you the very short answer: the ability to be present and to be myself in everything that I'm doing. Whether that's a business owner, whether that's a parent, whether that's a friend to myself, whether it's like whatever the fuck it is, it's, do I have the ability to be fully locked in and fully focused on this and fully present? And am I able to be myself? So when I have both of those things, I know that like from a performance standpoint, I feel and operate in a way that feels unstoppable. Take both of those things away from me and I'm a sack of shit. Like that's the easiest way to describe it. What I thought high performance was before was very much the grind and the hustle and I need to always be doing, always be going. And that took me away from those two things: the ability to be present and the ability to be able to be myself. And I got stuck in that for a long time because that's what I thought it was. Whereas now my definition is those two things. Being fully present in what I'm doing and where I am and who I'm with, and then the ability to be myself. That's probably what it means now.
Love it.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that you'd done with like us as a group, but you spoke to us about was high performance, and actually, I didn't think that was one of my issues. I was like, well, I do all the shit, like I do it, and like the business is doing pretty well, and I can't understand why I'm in the situation I'm because you know other people do that. And actually, when you strip back the layers about what performance was and having an understanding of that from me personally, that's one of the biggest game changers to me because I'm like, I very much as from one aspect of my life it looks like I'm performing, the cost to me right now is I am not present at all. I can't switch off. I'm very agitated. My brain's going at 100 miles an hour all of the time, and actually breaking that down a lot. So I love the answer because it is very much what you have done and obviously what you live and breathe. It's class.
Yeah, it took me a while to learn that though. Myself.
As much as you've massively helped me, I'm not going to lie, I'm still at the point where it's a work in progress for me, where it's still fighting the urge to. Yeah.
Same. And I think it always will be. Like my default, and I'll always say this, like I'm a fucking grafter. I'm a worker. I'm a workhorse. It's all I've ever known and it's all I've ever seen. And I've like, even like, so the bit that you don't know, but probably Kyle knows, is like my dad died when I was quite young. So like my mother has always been a grafter and always been a worker. So it's just been something that's been ingrained in us. And I never want to lose that. It's my default. But sometimes with every kind of thing that we have, it can be overplayed and overused, and learning process all the time. And I'm still a work in progress with that. And I think I'll forever be, and I'm happy to be. But I think there's times where I'll exceed my limits, and there's times where I need to pull myself back a little bit, and that's the joy of the game, I think.
That's what balance is all about, really, isn't it? I know balance is kind of a buzzword right now in the whole kind of fitness and well-being space, but yeah, knowing when to push forward and knowing when to pull back for me personally is kind of what balance kind of is. You know, sometimes we're going to need to take our focus away from one thing to focus on another thing for a short period of time. Sometimes life is going to get in the way and we're going to need to strip back entirely. Sometimes you're going to have a wee bit more time to actually be able to put a bit more effort in it and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that wasn't going into a question here. I was just agreeing with what you said. I'm the same as Kyle. I've fucking a million thoughts a second going through my brain right now. So, it's all kind of happening on my end. So
Yeah.
I need to come and speak to you after this call. Honestly.
Sure. That's actually my 10 o'clock slot. I just left it open just in case. I think for me, I used to always strive for balance. When I was trying to kind of come out of the grind and the hustle, my objective was to strive for balance. And then I realized that balance, probably in the way that we all believe it to be true, doesn't exist.
Yes.
And the two words that I tend to kind of cling on to and use as a filter now is like harmony and integration. Um, the integration part is, do the areas of my life integrate to each other? And is there alignment? And the harmony part is, when there is alignment, what happens is there's harmony between them all. So like, for example, I give an example of that of early last year, I would have said I wanted to do a photo shoot. Right. So I wanted to do a photo shoot. I wanted to be a parent. I wanted to be a fucking kick-ass business owner and push my business all at the same time. So alongside, I think, running a marathon at the same time. See, I'm a grafter. Um, Thankfully, I say thankfully, but not thankfully, my body put out before I did. So I got very, very sick, right? A regular thing for me, right? Lots of stomach issues. But for me at the time, there was disharmony between the goals that I had personally of the photo shoot and the marathon, both at the same time, alongside then trying to push my business. So there was disharmony there and there was misalignment. And that's not to say that you can push and do things. It's about understanding where you're pushing, why you're pushing, and why you want to do it. And when I really sat down and assessed the photo shoot in particular, it was like, okay, I'm getting sicker, I'm not getting healthier. Is this in alignment with what I want for my personal life and my professional life? And the very clear, quick answer was no. And I let it go, right? And I let it go because probably part of me was doing it so I could actually get my arse to the gym, or I could be a little bit more disciplined. So I started to do those things first. And now I ask myself the question of, how can my health and fitness and how can my different areas of my life impact and enhance the other areas as well? So there's always alignment and harmony. So me going into gym now looks very different to me last year going into the gym. But what it means is I come out of the gym and I feel like I actually have energy rather than being a sack of shit.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can come into calls and actually be present and be energized for them, rather than being like, jeez, fuck, I could do with a coffee now, even though I don't fucking drink coffee. Do you know that kind of way? It's like I was coming in already drained and that wasn't serving a purpose. So for me, it's like alignment and integration is huge.
Yeah.
I think you may have answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you define success for the clients that you work with?
Oh, I don't. And I'll tell you why, because they do that for themselves. And that's not a cop-out answer. For me, define success for them would look like, in whatever way it looks like for them, that they're living life and running their business on their terms. And that's success to me. Because the feeling of that, then knowing that you're able to do that, knowing that you have the freedom to do that, and knowing that what you're doing is impacting you as much as you're impacting other people, that's success to me. But that will look different for everybody else, right? So that's kind of the general like filter. But I will always say that, like, whether it comes to definition of high performance success, whatever it is, you know that I always ask you what your definition is, so that you're clear on for you, because what feels like success to me, what my definition is, could be something wildly different for everybody else.
Yeah.
And honoring that for the person is really important.
Love that. Success definitely does look different for everybody, and that's something that, even just being like a personal trainer, a fitness coach, that's something that you see is very prevalent in the gym, or in and around kind of health and well-being. Like, success is different for every single person, but I think a lot of people tend to struggle with it being, they think it's like a one size fits all, and I think social media has quite a lot to do with that as well. They think success is being as skinny as you can, maybe being as jacked as you can, lifting as heavy as you can, but for everybody it's different. And I would say, as I've got older, success to me has definitely changed dramatically over the years. Mid-20s, it was all about how good I could look. As I'm getting older, it's about how well I move, or how well I feel when I move. I'm not as injured. I'm sleeping better. I'm eating better. I have more energy. That to me is fucking success at the highest order, or success of the highest order. Sorry, just being energetic on a day-to-day basis when you're kind of mid-30s is is insane. But yeah, it's totally different from mid-20s, and I think when people come into to my business, um, asking the question of what does success look like to you, I am fucking stumbling. Caffeine's not kicked in yet. What does success look like to you is a very, very important question. Rather than it being this, or me telling them this is what success is going to look like for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I might ask like 10 iterations of that, by the way, so I don't take your first answer. Kyle will know this.
I was gonna say, I just when you talked about training in your thirties, like I went to bed on Tuesday night and I woke up Wednesday fine. I didn't train at all on Wednesday, and I woke up on Thursday. My knees were in absolute bits, and I'm like, "What happened during my sleep? My knees are in
I'm
agony."
actually laughing. I was laughing when Gary was speaking. I was like, are we actually having a middle-aged conversation here? Fuck me.
It
It's
is.
true.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, and just actually as well on the back what Gary said, it made me had a wee thought process. And like every single year, I've listed tangible things that I'll do that I'm like that'll be success for me. So whether it be a photo shoot, high rocks, powerlifting competition, I've sometimes a bit like Ciara, what you said, I do several things at once, and every single time I'd hit them, every single time I'd set them, I'd more or less hit them. But I do remember crossing the finish line at a marathon feeling empty, doing a photo shoot and feeling next to nothing, winning a powerlifting competition, and I remember Jen the entire time going, "You look raging," and I was like, I'm raging because I failed my last lift. I wasn't like caring about the in my head because it actually, you know what, it didn't. That wasn't what I thought was success. Wasn't actually success. Whereas, ironically, ironically, this year there wasn't a tangible goal set. But if anything, it's made me double down on what is actual success without having to tick something
Mhm.
off as such. And I'm like, I definitely feel in a much better place than any of the times that I was getting pats in the backs, photographs, medals. Albeit it's great for
Mhm.
content. Keep on liking my content, please, when you see it. But like, it's yeah, it's harder to define, you know.
Yeah, I think what we
Everybody's chasing. Oh, sorry, on you go.
go, go, go.
I was just going to say everybody's chasing that pat in the back, and then when we get the pat in the back, we realize it doesn't really mean anything.
Mm. Forget to pat yourself in the back. Well, we can go very philosophical here now. I've had my coffee.
Let's do it.
But I was going to say, I find with my business, like the easiest thing that I could do right now in my business is to get everyone to follow a same structure. The hardest part of my business now is that nobody follows the same structure on purpose, with purpose, because I never want anyone to come in and say that this is the one system and this has to fit for you, because a lot of what we do is the undoing of that kind of work. So it's about helping you find your system. And I think I make things hard for myself on purpose by not setting the system, but I think that's the way they will always continue forward.
Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, I was thinking about maybe getting into some of the like direct work you do with people and some of the things that they might experience, if you don't mind on that. Like, I was thinking like I always say when you come up with certain topics, I'm like, I don't really suffer from that. But then sometimes you'll say a few things and I'll really look into it and go, fuck, maybe I do actually. Like, I think at one point you were talking about identity. And I was like, I don't really suffer from my identity. I know who I am, or whatever. But then you were talking about actions alongside that. And I'm like, well, actually, do you know what? If I don't do this, I get anxiety about it. And maybe I am actually struggling with my identity. I need to continue to prove that I am something, even though I didn't think it was. So I think sometimes I like you say something, I'm like, oh wow, my head now needs to do a bit of work to look at that. But to be more specific on that, I think being working with you for a while, some of the common things that come up with are people who struggle with self doubt, imposter syndrome. How do you help those type of people reframe their mindset?
Um, Good question. Reframing a mindset is not as easy as people make it out to be, because a lot of what we see on social media these days, people think it's well, just think the opposite and just say the opposite. So I'll give an example, and I'll go back to like maybe my story just to give put it into context. Reframing, people think that it's well just choosing the opposite. For me at that time, it would be if I believe that I was not good enough. The general kind of practice that's out there at the moment is, well, just say that you are. Seems easy, right? That's a reframe. If you don't fucking believe that, you can say it till the cows come home. The system won't integrate it. And then because of that, your subconscious mind won't believe it. So your identity will still remain, I'm not good enough. So how do we actually genuinely reframe? Is we start kind of like, I kind of equate it to like building a ladder. What we want to also understand is, I think a lot of things come down to, and this isn't a let's blame your parents and let's look at your past and say that that's like a thing for everything. What I say with that is, there's been experiences that we've had in life, right? From the time that we were born right into the age that anybody comes to me with. And because of those experiences, what I find is human beings will attach a meaning to them. Okay. And that meaning will dictate the belief system that they have about themselves. Right. So meaning turns into belief. When we believe it to be true, what we need to understand from a mental performance or a subconscious mind perspective is that the belief activates a very special part of our brain called the RAS, which stands for reticular activating system, my favorite part of the brain. It wasn't always my favorite part of the brain because it used to work against me a lot. But the thing we need to understand is when we believe something, it activates the reticular activating system. The job of the reticular activating system has like literally one job: to conserve energy for the mind. Okay. We can't take in every single piece of information. And what it does is it takes what we believe and it shuts down any contradicting belief to that. So you can say that I'm good enough till the counts come home into the fucking mirror, but all the while your subconscious mind is like batting it away. Because in order to take that in and in order to soak that in, what happens is our brain needs to wake up. Our brain needs to use energy, and our brain is like, nope, 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 nope. It's like fucking playing ping pong. You're trying to do like the best work for yourself, and your brain is like, the fuck you are. Nope. Like, so what we need to do there, right, in that sense, is to understand, to create understanding. We can't change what we don't understand, right? Now, does that mean that we need to go and dissect the ins and outs of everything that we've experienced? Absolutely not. But what I always say is with clients is a lot of the work that I do is bringing them out of their head and into their body. Body knows the score. And this took me a while to accept and to learn that actually there was a connection. But when I did, it changed the game for my journey with myself and also with my clients as well. When I say that, right, what we're looking at here is how do we change belief systems? We also need to understand that our nervous system plays a huge role in that. Okay. So to break this down into simple theory, the most common thing that people will come to me is self-doubt. And I'll use mine. I'm not good enough. Because I'm not good enough, I doubt myself at every turn. We think that self-doubt is trying to limit us and stop us. So any limiting thought that you have, it's trying to stop you or hold you back. The reframe instantaneously is, what if it was trying to protect you? Right? What if every bullshit thought that you have about yourself is actually a way that younger you is trying to protect you, to keep you safe, to stop you from experiencing the shit that you experienced when you were a kid or when you were a teenager, and to stop you from getting hurt again? When we reframe and look through that lens, that's the bit that changes the game first. Because rather than trying to tear me down and pull me back, it's actually trying to protect me. And what I always say in the work that we do in genuinely reframing it is we need to go back to provide safety to that version of ourselves to know that it's okay to step forward. So the analogy that I use in this is take a kid. So I've a 2.5-year-old and I have a 10-month-old. Take May as an example of this, right? If she becomes the parent, if she is now hypervigilant to how I feel and she needs to make sure that everything that I do, she needs to mind me and protect me, she can't be a kid. She can't play, she can't be free, she can't do any of those things because she's constantly looking and scanning to make sure I'm okay. In that sense, the roles have been reversed, right? And for us, no matter what age we are, that's what our limiting beliefs are like at the moment. Our younger version of ourselves needs to be like hyper vigilant and hyper aware and hyper in tune of like, I need to protect Kai, I need to protect Carrie, I need to protect here, I need to make sure that they're safe because they experienced this and our body remembers how it fucking felt. Right? So when we come back to that, our job now and our responsibility now is we don't go back and we blame parents, we don't go back and we blame our past, we go back to understand it, to understand actually that maybe because of this, I started to believe this about myself. My responsibility now is to understand that I can help my younger self feel safe in building a new belief. So it's less about I just say the opposite and reframe it. And it's more about how can I go back and reintegrate and help the past version of myself feel safe in this change, right? Because otherwise, this is what's going to happen. They're constantly going to want to pull you back because they don't feel safe, right? Mm-hmm. That's a bit of deeper work. It's a lot of subconscious work. It can be tricky to do that work by yourself. What I will always say is all of our body, when we go to step forward to do something, will feel the resistance somewhere. It might be a tightness in our chest. It might be a heaviness on our shoulders. It might be something in our back. In my case, it's my fucking stomach. Always has been. I know that I've met my resistance when my stomach flares up, right? So I actually tune into that. That sounds really wild. I'm like, okay, if my stomach could speak now, what would it say? I'm scared. I'm worried. I'm frightened. I don't have all the answers. I feel alone. Are kind of the 5 usual answers that come up. Mm-hmm. Okay, what can I do now knowing that information now, having that information now to go back and actually like give that sense of safety. We do it for our kids, right? And that's what we need to do for ourselves. And my true belief genuinely is when it comes to high performance, we cannot perform at the highest level that we know that we are capable of when we don't feel safe at a particular level somewhere in our life. Right? So until we find that safety, that higher level of performance can't actually happen. We can't thrive in a feeling of unsafety, as much as the gurus try to tell us that we can, to push through and to keep going and to do all those things. You'll always hit a roadblock. Does this come out visually as a podcast?
Yes, yeah.
So I always say that when it comes to like our past selves and our younger selves, and we're talking about integration, we're talking about reframing, the way I always see it is as you're striving forward, as you're pushing forward, if you don't have the identity work done, the subconscious mind work done, every single time you get to the edge of that identity, this is what will happen. There'll be a block that gets put up. Not to hold you back, not to keep you stuck, to protect you, right? Because there's a fear at the other side of this, right? So what we want to do is what happens in that case is we pull back, the block has done its job, it's kept you safe. The more that pattern plays out, the stronger it becomes, the more automatic it becomes, the more challenging it becomes to actually change it, but you still can't change it. But what it means is, how do I get this part of me to feel safe, to know that I can actually move forward? And then the block just goes down itself. Does that make sense in theory?
Yeah.
Free. Yeah,
It does. It does. And it's very deep, like you said, it's very like a lot of work kind of subconsciously as well. Which I'll just use myself as an example here. For me, I probably don't think I've done enough subconsciously, and I know myself, I've got so many of these blocks up in place. And I guess it's just I've never taken the time to go deep because you said here as well, you said yourself that it's very difficult to do on your own. And when you are, when you're surrounded with people that don't really understand it as well, it's not an easy thing to do. Would you say that other kind of high performers kind of face mental roadblocks like that as well? It is just kind of struggling to get past those blocks because they are I don't want to say isolated because I'm not isolated, but I just don't have the help round about me. Does that make sense?
Yep. I would change the help to I don't have the mirrors around me, right?
Mirrors around me. Yeah.
I'd say my wife fucking absolutely loves being with me because I'm a constant mirror, be like, hey, see us over here. This is a pattern. Because I've gone there myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at this, right, the question that you asked is, do many high performers hit those roadblocks as well?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. One of the statements that comes to mind, as you said, that was, what got you here won't get you there. So what I find in most, if you look at like any story with any athlete or high performer in business or whatever kind of area of high performance you want to look in, there'll be a reoccurring theme of, I probably am doing it to prove something to someone, potentially, right? Or to themselves. But there's been a pattern that has got them to where they are, and they use that as fucking fuel. What happens is, I still want people to use that as fuel, but we need to change the intention behind it, the driver behind it. Rather than doing it to prove now, we need to take the strengths and the characteristics from it and repurpose it for your next level, right? So what that looks like is, what would it look like if you didn't have to prove all the time? Oh, well, actually, maybe I give myself a little bit of a break. Maybe I'd actually just go and fucking sit in the hammock. I say that because it's just there. Sit in the hammock and actually chill for like 20 minutes. Okay. What would your life look like if you did that? Oh, okay, well, if I took a break, I'd probably be more creative. Well, let's do that. But what happens is when the pattern of proving is so strong and we've utilized it and harnessed so much, that can be from a nervous system standpoint of like, oh shit, we're just letting go of everything that we've ever known and has gotten us to this level of success. And that's the scary part. But when people lean into that, what they find is a new lease of like energy and a new lease of life, because they're taking the strengths and the characteristics of that and then using it for a new purpose, right? Whilst also then giving them, I think Kyle, I've used this with you, of like, as much as we love high challenge, all of us, we also have to back that up with high support for ourselves as well. And that new high support looks different because we want to, my thing is I want to be able to help people sustain high performance forever rather than just for a short period of time, right? So for me, like high performance without burnout looks like looking at the patterns that got us to where we are, but also helping people understand that I'm not asking you to let go of them. I'm just asking you to repurpose them for the next level. And we just need to take some of the things and add in a bit of like potential rest and recovery is probably the dirty words that we tend to use, but so yeah, it's one of those things that like it's the big roadblock. I remember having a client come up to me after one of our retreat days and like literally pulled me aside, sat me on the bench, was like, just had this realization that for all of my life I've been playing not to lose. I've always been looking over my shoulder, and I've gotten to like a huge level of success. Like this, he owns an incredible business and is incredibly successful. He's like, I just don't want to do that anymore because I'm exhausted, but I can't let that go because it has built this level. So the work that we've been doing is to repurpose, like, okay, what would it look like to play to win? If you didn't have to look over your shoulder the entire time, what would that look like? And that's the integration piece, because we need to help your nervous system feel safe in doing that as well.
Amazing.
I need to get myself a hammock.
Yeah, I should actually probably just gift everybody a hammock as a welcome present.
Right, I've got a question for you for the hammock. What do you have it up on?
I'll send you a picture. We are very lucky. We've got two really strong trees, and it's like sitting on a bank overlooking a little river that we have. So, yeah, goals.
I am so jealous. We brought two hammocks back, hand weaved. Is that what you say? Hand weaved hammocks from Canada, and we live in a small cottage flat, so we have fuck all place to put them.
Bring him down here.
To be fair, our house, our garden looks straight into the motor, like it's the path to the motorway. And I'm like, if I had a hammock there, I'd just be seeing cars going pew, pew, pew. It's quite awkward in summertime when you have those 2 days of sun and we go to sit out in the garden, because when there's a traffic queue, there's just people literally stopped right beside where we are. This is really strange. But just in terms of like, you work with a lot of high performers. Like, what would you say differentiates high performers from the rest?
Their drive, their tenacity, their relentlessness, their ability to push their feelings aside. I think it's their greatest strength, but it can also be their greatest barrier or roadblock. And to go back to the original question that you asked me at the start, is that's kind of what I help people do, is repurpose that. I want to take that same drive, that same tenacity, the same relentlessness, and allow you to be able to apply it to your whole life. I think high performers are very driven in one aspect. And the holistic part for me is, imagine taking that and adding that to the rest of your life as well, like your relationships, your hobbies, your time for yourself, like your family, all these things. Rather than being one-dimensionally successful, imagine being like fucking successful in all areas. And that's the kind of game that I want to play with all of my high performers. But that's kind of, it's their relentlessness, their drive, they're all different, and they've known that they've been different for a very long time. And there's times where they wake up to that sense of difference and they harness it and they utilize it. And I think that's what separates them.
How much do you think emotional intelligence plays into that, to high performance?
I think it's the foundation and the core. You have someone who's driven and relentless and like fucking determined and all those things that I just said, and you take away emotional intelligence, and you probably have someone linked with like all the things like arrogance, and they don't really give a shit about people, and they probably don't give a shit about themselves. It's probably the high performance that people know and aspire to. I feel like things need to be like that. And as a mind fuckery and a little tangent to that question is, most people will come to me and say that they're afraid of failing. The majority of the time, what they're actually afraid of is success. And the reoccurring theme that I see show up in a lot of people is they will tell me this story or statement of, well, all I've heard all my life around people who are success or who are high performers is that they're X, Y, and Z, whether they're arrogant or they're whatever it is, they'll have a negative like belief or association with that. And I don't want to be that. I know that was certainly the case for me. That was subconscious until it became very clear to me of that was what was actually holding me back. I had a monumental belief of like, well, I can't get to this level of success because if I do, this is what people would think about me, and I don't want that. So it was actually a fear of success. And I think that's the bit where I forget the exact question that you asked me now, but I think it's for high performers, it's linking that together to make sure that they can do it for themselves in a way that is true to themselves. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I know that's probably a little bit off piste at the moment, but it's just that it did make me think in terms of like things like from a health and fitness perspective, like we typically have the standard 10K steps, track your food, train somewhere between 2 and 4 times a week. Is there any form of, don't want to say metricing, but is there any form of healthy habits or routines that you use with your clients on a regular basis that does help optimize performance?
I would say the first thing that comes to my mind is the traffic light system, right? Um, are you operating in green, amber, or red? And I'll differentiate between the three zones now. This is a nervous system standpoint, but it's also mental performance. So I think it carries both. To explain that, right? One of the things that I'd love people to take away from this is a lot of people will come to me and say that it's it's my fucking head, like it's self-doubt and it's all these thoughts that I have. What I hear in that is that you're completely and utterly dysregulated, right? Majority of time when people come to me, they're teetering either between amber and red, and if not, they're fully in red. The thing that I want everybody to take from this is the state in which your nervous system is in, whether that's green, amber, or red, will dictate the story in your mind. Okay. So when we're green and when we're in green, we are our most calm, settled, connected self, both to ourselves and to other people and to what we're doing. And that is a thing where most people, that's the space where most high performers don't actually operate in, believe it or believe it not, right? They operate in the next level, which is the amber zone. The amber zone is very much fight or flight. But what you'll find is if you find that everything that you're doing, you feel like it needs to be done yesterday, or there's a sense of urgency, or you're feeling a bit frantic about it all, like I have to get this done and this has to be done yesterday, and we have that kind of energy, you're operating in the amber, right? And you'll want to continue to speed up in that space. What happens is the more that high performers utilize that space, the more that they get used to kind of being there, and that becomes their standard. And that's where burnout slowly starts to creep in. Because the more that you try to push and drive and keep going forward, despite kind of being dysregulated or not being connected to yourself, the more that you actually drive yourself into full shutdown, full freeze. Okay. And that's when high performers get to a point of like, what's the fucking point? Or things are always going to be like this, or this is just how it's going to be. And our story in our mind becomes a very like finite story around like things are never going to change, things are always going to be like this. Again, what's the point? So I use that as a barometer to assess and see where people are at. And I'd love for everybody to kind of do that on a weekly basis and even daily basis if you're starting out. Like, am I in green, amber, or red right now? The analogy that I always use that seems to land with every Irish person, right? When you are driving, do you both drive? Kyle, you're near, you got it.
Just about, yeah, yeah, just about.
Say yes to this question. But Gary, do you drive?
Yes.
Right. I want you to answer this question honestly. When you get to an orange light, what do you do?
Uh,
It depends how far away I am, but
Depends
typically
on
I
the
would try and
situation.
I'd try and speed up to get through it. If I'm being honest.
I speed up to get through it unless I'm way back. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'm speeding up to get through that orange fucking light.
Yeah, right. And that's what we all as high performers do. We hit amber and we fucking drop a gear,
Yeah.
go to the floor, and we're gone, right? Because we think that that's the thing that's going to avoid the red. Okay. I'm in a state of amber. Things are very urgent. Everything feels frantic. Things feel a bit chaotic. I'm going to push harder. And that's the bit then where people often come to me in full freeze mode, where their body or life or themselves has given them a stop, right? I actually cannot continue to sustain this way, right? So then they come in full red, right? With a traffic light system, what we're actually meant to do, if we were all to abide by the rules, right, is when we see amber, it's like slow down, prepare to stop, right? But if we took the slow down bit just for a sec, and in the moment of everything being urgent and everything feeling frantic and everything feeling fucking chaotic and feeling like you have to tick off a million things off your to-do list, if you just took a minute and metaphorically sat in the hammock and zoomed out a minute, you'd actually very quickly come back into green. And if you let that be your process, instead of going from amber to red, you go from amber to green and green to amber and amber to green. And that's high performance. We need an element of pressure. We need an element of stress. We need an element of little bit of fucking kick up the hole to get us going, right? But if that's the thing that needs to sustain us to keep us going, that's a one-way ticket to consistent red. And we only ever go between those two things. So I try with all of my clients to try and imprint that as much as I possibly can, just as an internal assessment is the first thing. Because what you'll find in those 3 levels is when you're in amber, you'll be very much, come on to fuck, let's get the fucking thing done. Like your internal narrative will be like motivating, but like not very positively motivating, right? You're trying to motivate yourself by shitting all over yourself in order to keep yourself going, right? Because that's what you've always known. And then when you hit red, you're very much well, it's because of this, you're the problem, da 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 da, and it gets even more aggressive, right? When we're in green, if you were to all assess this right now, just the two of you, right, and anybody listening, when you're most connected to yourself and to others and to your work, when things feel like in flow and things are just, you're just having one of those days where everything is like, fuck yeah. What are the quality of your thoughts like?
Good, better.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
More calm.
Why wouldn't you want to spend more time in that zone?
Yeah. Honestly, that analogy has literally just blown my mind. Like, just thinking about, you're right, like when I see an amber light, I am fucking foot to the floor 9 times out of 10. And just kind of thinking about like relating that to my everyday, mentioning the to-do list and stuff like that. I'm like, fuck. It's just been a proper real eye opener. Yeah, my mind has just been like,
yeah. And the real work comes then of like, let's say, for example, I think since I've had kids, when I actually see an amber light, I do fucking like slow down. And I probably drive way slower now. I think like cruise control goes on and whatever the speed limit is, I just like flick to that. And rightly so. But for me, I think the greatest lesson in having kids is that I had to slow down was the first thing. They're very great little tiny humans to get you to fucking like think differently, feel differently, and actually slow down. But when you're sitting at that traffic light, when you're not moving forward and you've taken a pause, whatever thoughts and resistances come up, that's the work. And that's probably the same thing that when you go to move forward, that's the same level. I don't feel safe in this pause. I don't feel safe in this most I was like, fuck, just talking to me. But like, I don't feel safe in this, right? And then the question is, why don't I?
Actually, you know what? It hurts a little bit in the sense that I know it's still so true. But two of the things you said. Well, firstly, I'm going to clip the part where you said about slowing down to an amber light and send it to my ma because she's the world's worst driver and she once got flashed twice. She got flashed once because she didn't make the amber light and went for a red light, and she got flashed the second time for speeding through it. She got 2 separate fines and 1 set of lights. So I'm just sending her the clip of how to actually approach lights in the first place, not from an emotional point, from an actual light point of view. But I think what you said about having kids, 100%. I don't think, whilst I always had in my head what I was doing was temporary in terms of pushing, and I would slow down at said time. There wasn't ever a said time in my head. It was like when I'll have kids, when, whatever. But if anything, when I had Finn, albeit Gary, you've got 7 weeks before your due date, I thought I had 6 and he arrived 6 weeks early. So, like, I mean, I'd get having some of those talks with Rachel ASAP just so your thing's in place. But
mate, that's fucking next week for us. Don't scare me like that.
Hey, I had calls booked in. I had calls and setups. I done a setup in the hospital because I promised people they were getting started the next day. I had to get like a council cheese sandwich into me. Like it was anyway. Sorry. Yes,
we can talk about that in our next session because
dramatic. But yeah, I think when Finn came along, the thing was I need to view my time differently. I can't work in the evening the way I did. I can't overspill. I can't like literally spend night and day on the laptop. And that's one of the things that Ciara, you've very much helped me with. But there's no surprise that in that kind of couple of months that it was a case of I approached the point where I was trying to speed up. And there was everything was telling me to slow down. I just kept pushing through it and eventually crashed. But then the second part to that is when you talk about like not being comfortable in your thoughts. All of the things that were telling me to slow down, I would go out walks and I wouldn't go a walk without having something in my ears. In between check-ins, I'd put something on, like making my food, I'd have something on. And it's like I'd constantly be trying to just take inputs in with never listening to the little voices in my head. Whereas now I do the complete opposite where I'm like, I go out even when I don't, especially when I don't want to. When I want to listen to something, I'm like, you need to go out there and you just need to be for the next 40 minutes of your walk just in your own thoughts, which is even more difficult when the dark nights and stuff. I'm like, I just need to be there and listen to it. But you know what? That's really helps in terms of like just being able to like listen to them. And Jamie Alderton, I listened to one of his podcasts, not my walk anymore because I don't do that. But I listened to one of his things and he was talking about meditation, and he's like, meditation isn't the like hippy dippy stuff where it's like he's really struggling to zone out for 10 minutes and get into trance. It's literally just acknowledging a thought, acknowledging it's there, and just letting it be. Sometimes visualizing the little bubbles and just let them go away. I thought that was class.
I think a lot of I go back to the question you asked me around reframing a little while ago, and I think to take anything from this is like those thoughts that you're having, if you actually sat with them and listened to them, but also viewed themselves as like, and I often do this as like a visual, in terms of like helping connect nervous system to subconscious mind, where it's like we go back and we're like, imagine that you were sitting beside younger self, like 12, 13, 7 year old you, and that version of you was saying this to you right now. Like, how would you approach those thoughts now? Because you wouldn't be trying to suppress them and you wouldn't be trying to push them down. You wouldn't be telling them to fuck off and you wouldn't be telling them to like, oh my God, why are you holding me back? You'd be like, how can I listen? And what do you need? And that's probably the game changer in terms of reframing is like, if we can slow down, and you could probably see my face when I said that, like, slowing down bit is the bit that gets many high performers. It's like, I don't want to slow down. And that's the biggest resistance that I find hard, even in marketing sometimes, because I like, if I could just sit you down and get you to sit with yourself for fucking 10 minutes, that would be great. But that means me telling you that you need to slow down. Most people, when they hear slow down, they fully believe like that I'm asking them to stop forever, right? And that's the hardest part. But if you can slow down enough to sit with yourself and those thoughts and even write them down of like, if this was coming from a 7 year old version of myself, what would I actually do to help them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're branching into inner child stuff, but actually you can call inner child and subconscious work the same thing because that's what they are. And there's a reason why it works. I would have been very anti it for a very long time because I was a hustler and I was a grinder, and it was like, I'm not doing any of that woo stuff. Genuinely, I was like, fuck that, like I'm out. But when it was branded to me as subconscious work, and then I started to understand it a little bit deeper, I'm like, hold on a second, I can give myself what I never got. And the more I do that, even now to still to this day, the more I give myself what I never got, the more I can actually get what I never had.
Mm-hmm. I know we're kind of running short on time here, but I just want to finish on possibly the last question, maybe the second last question. But for anyone that's kind of listening who feels stuck in either their career or personal life or both, what would you recommend as the first step that they should take?
I just sent me a message. I don't even
That's
know.
good.
Um, I would say genuinely just step back, right? Metaphorically go and sit in the hammock, but literally list of like what parts of your life feel stuck right now. Where do you find the most resistance? Where in your life, personally or professionally, do you feel like it's a constant drain or a constant push or a constant fight? Because if things are a constant drain and a constant push and a constant fight, I would say you're hustling backwards.
hmm
I genuinely believe that, like, I know we have to have an element of sacrifice and an element of push in order to get where we need to be. But if that's an everyday part of the process, and you really safely call that success, and that's probably one of the reasons why you're stuck. So really looking at the different areas of your life where there is that misalignment, where there is that tension, where there is that constant need to push, and just look up and like, if actually all of that could look easy, what would it look like? And there's the first resistance because most people are like, well, it shouldn't be,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Why shouldn't it be? Like you can operate at your highest level when things are in flow, when things are effortless. Like you're actually unstoppable because you can fucking do that forever. And that's the bit that most people like don't understand. But the bit in the middle is slowing down enough to actually
yeah.
just sit with that for a second.
think I think if I was to be in that state, or like this is the kind of my perception of it, if I was in that kind of state, that flow, I would feel guilty. I would feel like I'm maybe not doing enough. I would feel like, why is this so easy? Why is this so good? Like this isn't normal. And I guess it's just because that's what I've been around my whole life. That feeling of I must be doing something wrong if this seems so right. Does that make sense?
You should write that down. I must be doing something wrong if things feel so right.
That's yeah, that's it.
Your nervous system, I'll just give an example because you just brought it up, doesn't feel safe when things are going right.
Yeah.
Right. So without even needing to go deeper into why that is the case, we can actually see that as the baseline. So every time you hit a level of, oh my God, success and success feels easy, your nervous system is like, okay, I'll create a bit of chaos and then we can go back to what feels normal again.
Yeah.
So imagine what you would be like if actually you could sustain that. Like that's the fucking bit, right?
That's a scary thought. That's a scary thought.
Success beyond your wildest dreams, that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So
Right,
I'm
I
like,
know.
fuck. He's like, oh, leave me. Look, I've got a minute.
I
Why are
know.
you?
Fuck.
And then, why resist that? Like, if you have success beyond your wildest dreams, like, literally sit with that today and be like,
Yeah.
why would you resist that? Like, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gary's going to spend the rest of the day just brain going like this.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to dig the hammock out. I am putting that hammock up somewhere.
Send us pictures.
Oh, no.
I'm ordering one from Amazon. And I'll be sitting out in my back garden looking at people going into the motorway.
No, I do want to ask anything else, Kyle, quickly, because I know
No, the only thing I was going to ask is where can people find you or learn more about high performance?
Type in Holistic High Performance Academy across all social media platforms, and you should be able to find me. And if not, just type in Ciara McCullough.
I usually put the link to your Instagram page in the show notes anyway, so I will link that below so everybody gets a direct link to your Instagram page. If you want me to have you got a website?
Not yet, but it's coming. I say that, and I've said that for the last year, so it's on the way. it's on the bottom of the list. I'm most active on Instagram, so if you want to catch me there. That's Holistic High Performance Academy, yeah.
Thanks. That's the one I'll put in the show notes then.
Plus, Gary, where can they find you?
Instagram at gmac_health and fitness as always. Kyle, where can they find you?
For the next week, it's Kyle_biofitness1, but next week it will be Kyle_biofitness. We're losing the one because I'm stealing back. It was rightfully
when we started this podcast, you were Kyle Biofitness 88.
I wasn't even Kyle Biofitness 88. I was just Biofitness 88.
Oh, there you go. Oh my God.
I've now adopted the name that I once had. But anyway, look, that's time is of the essence.
Right there. He's like, I'm fucking claiming it back. There you are now. Good.
Thank you, Ciara, for coming on today. I think there was a lot there and a lot of people will take from that. Gary, as always, thank you. Dave and Toby, thank you for the music. And we'll catch you next week, guys.
Ciara, thank you very much. See you all next time.
Bye-bye.